Okay, I guess we'll get started. My name is Kevin Sheppard. I'm a director of the Mineral Lands Division in the Department of Energy and Mines in St. John's. Um, I'm the facilitator. I see from the agenda for this session. So the only person, if I go over time, the only person who can stop me is me. Um, I've been with the mining and mineral development branch for over 10 years, and prior to that, I worked in engineering in the Department of Transportation in Ontario. Although two different provinces and different departments with different mandates, the connecting link is that resource developments and infrastructure are key elements to economic development. I'm pleased to provide an overview of how mineral resources are studied, managed, and how their development is regulated. One of the key takeaways for you, and I'm not sure if there's anybody from municipalities here, is how mineral exploration and mining are separate activities in terms of the regulatory frameworks, but also connected as economic drivers in the province. I want to thank my department team members and Mining NL for providing some of the information contained in my presentation. My presentation is divided into four main sections, along with a brief summary at the end. You will see mineral development has been a part of the province's history for thousands of years, how land and mineral resources are managed through well-established regulatory processes, and what some mineral exploration activities look like and how they are separate from mining. Geodiversity is a term that means a collection of natural elements such as rocks, minerals, soils, and landforms, and also considers the processes that shape landscapes over time. Newfoundland and Labrador has a strong geodiversity owing to its vast landmass, geological structures, and mineral endowment. Developing our resources sustainably to benefit the people of the province has been the constant message of Minister Parrott and the department. Newfoundland connection. Just some brief geology here, folks. Not to get into any of the details of the colors themselves, but you can see Newfoundland, the island of Newfoundland on the right there. The province's geology is certainly diverse and unique, but there are commonalities that can be traced from rock units in Newfoundland to those in Atlantic Canada, eastern United States, and also into Europe. Understanding these connections over the last several decades is continuing to increase our knowledge and understanding of the mineral resources we possess. As a result of the movement of the Earth's crust over hundreds of millions of years on the island, we are left with four geological zones. The Humber Zone contains the remnants of an ancient sea that existed alongside the continental rocks that include the Long Range Mountains. The Avalon Zone contains mainly sedimentary rocks formed in shallow to deep seas within river systems, and some units contain fossils showing early primitive life, such as those at Mistaken Point at the southeast corner of the Avalon. The Central Zone, comprising the Dunnage and Gander zones, which were located, of course, are the result of the smashing together of land masses as the east and west came together. These include various sedimentary, volcanic, and metamorphic rocks, along with oceanic crustal rocks. The Central Zone is rich in mineral resources and have been exploited for development for decades, and has also been the focus of intense mineral exploration activity, particularly in the last several years. Mining, as you can see here, mining began thousands of years ago with the indigenous peoples in the province, and there's been a long legacy of mineral development. Early indigenous peoples arrived in Labrador around 9,000 years ago, and they used the local rocks to craft tools for hunting, personal adornment, and ceremonial use. Ramachert, derived from northern Labrador, was quarried by various indigenous peoples for use as tools and in trade. The National Historic Site in Port au Choix shows evidence of maritime archaic occupation where they lived and hunted. Much later, the Dorset people quarried the soapstone at Fleur-de-Lis for uses such as making bowls and oil lamps. This quarry is also a National Historic Site. Everyone is likely familiar with the National Historic Site at L'Anse aux Meadows, where about 1,000 years ago, the Norse lived and was the first to undertake iron smelting in Newfoundland. Many lakes and bogs have iron dissolved in the water. They also contain certain acids which form chemical reactions with the iron, making it form into small lumps or crusty pieces. When these were heated to very high temperatures, they melted into a solid piece of iron that could be hammered and forged into iron objects. And if you've been on the trade show floor today, there's a gentleman from Fogo Island there who's actually a metal forger and does metal sculpting. So sort of a modern activity from that was started in the province about 1,000 years ago. Sorry, I skipped that slide. The Tilcoat mine on the Baber Peninsula represents the earliest mining in our current human history, which began operations in 1864. The mine produced copper and other minerals. This area was acquired by Firefly Metals in 2024 and is also part of the broader Baber mining district that has properties owned by Newfound Gold and others. Here's a neat slide to show how our mineral resources are used in technology. And they're virtually used in all aspects of society. You can see here from the periodic table that these technologies are comprised of over 40 minerals and elements. You will see next that many of these elements and minerals are present in the province and are actively being explored for and mined. And if any of you came to our team's booth today, there was some various illustrations given to students from schools in the local area on how minerals are used in everyday uses, such as in wallboard, in food, and industrial activity things that you wouldn't necessarily think of, like gypsum being used in your drywall, your wallboard. So it speaks to minerals being used in all of our lives. Critical minerals are essential for a modern economy, and global demand is forecast to increase significantly. Canada released its strategy on these minerals in 2022, and Newfoundland and Labrador its plan in 2023. There has been a continuous focus on critical minerals ever since, so there's a number of them there, as you can see. Canada has identified 34 critical minerals, and you can see that Newfoundland and Labrador, with the note of the flag there, as indications of most of these being present to some degree. This is more evidence of the province's geodiversity. Earlier, I alluded to the importance of minerals for our infrastructure needs to support economic development in the province. Even in their simplest form, minerals, including those used for mineral aggregates and construction, are essential and literally and figuratively the foundation of all infrastructure, such as roads and bridges, including those needed to support mineral exploration and mining. Hundreds of quarries, which are surface mines, are located throughout the province along major highway routes and within municipalities. We are seeing an emerging aggregate export industry in the province, including shoreline aggregates on the Baber Peninsula, and others, such as Belorme on the south coast, are in the planning and development phase. The value of these mineral aggregates cannot be understated. Although relatively minor in terms of the other minerals, which you will see in the next slide, this shows that quarries can add significant value to the economy. So these are the things that are going around. You've probably driven by quarries many times along highways, and they're pumping out materials that are used to maintain our road infrastructure and build houses and schools and hospitals and things like that. Mining continues to be a major contributor to Newfoundland and Labrador's economy. It represents about 7% of the provincial economy, second to oil and gas. The sector supports employment, exploration spending, mineral production, and business activity across the province. The province is home to 11 producing mines with 13 commodities. In 2025, mining contributed $4.6 billion in mineral shipments, $249 million in exploration, and nearly 9,000 years in person employment. So it speaks to the significance of these things. And in terms of the $249 million there, that's new money. That's new money introduced into the province through investments by from agencies and banks and others from outside the province. Central Newfoundland is a hotspot for gold and critical mineral exploration. In 2024, over $139 million was spent on mineral exploration on the island. For 2025, island exploration expenditures are forecast to exceed $167 million. The map shown here highlight the density of gold showings, the map on the left. So each little dot shows a gold showing in the rocks in the region. And significant staking activity. So all the areas that you see on the right map in the black polygon, all these polygons represent the land under mineral license that are being used to explore for minerals. And in central Newfoundland, this represents about 35% of the land mass, and that's the area between the two red lines there. That's kind of marks out the central Newfoundland region. Mining in Newfoundland. Newfoundland Labrador has a number of operating mines, production facilities, and projects nearing production. Locally, Newfound Gold, that you probably know about and heard about, is advancing its project just down the road there at Appleton, and on the Bayburt Peninsula, where they have properties as well. Firefly Metals, also on the Bayburt Peninsula, and Equinox Gold down at Valentine Lake in southwest central, went into production last year with its first gold pour at its Valentine Lake property. The growing number of projects demonstrates a strong pipeline of activity, helping to sustain long-term economic development and employment in central Newfoundland. So now I'll just get into a little bit of an overview of our department. But first, our province continues to be recognized as one of the world's leading mineral development jurisdictions, and is consistently in the top 10 globally. In the Fraser Institute's 2025 survey, the province ranked 7th globally on the Policy Perception Index, with a score of 93 out of 100. So that's how the rest of the mining industry and the investors see this jurisdiction as a place to spend its money. We also rank 3rd among Canadian jurisdictions on investment attractiveness, which also speaks to our ranking there. Importantly, this is part of a consistent pattern. Year over year, Newfoundland and Labrador continues to perform as a top-tier jurisdiction. It speaks to our policy environment and our reputation as a place where mining investment can move forward with confidence. But this is not possible without the support of industry, Mining NL, our Prospectors Association, our sister departments, our municipal governments, and members of the public who provide support to these projects. Okay, there's a little breakdown of our department. We're divided into three branches. The department of 3 branches. We have 9 divisions and 18 regional offices. My division, the Mining and Mineral Development branch, we have some other people here tonight from that branch, is made up of the Geological Survey, Mineral Lands, which is where I'm from, and Mineral Development divisions. And within that branch, then there are 3 divisions. and 11 program areas with a head office in St. John's, and staff also located in satellite offices in Grand Falls, Windsor, and Pasadena. For those of you who are looking at careers, our staff educational backgrounds, the branch is mainly composed of geologists, but there are also engineers, engineering technologists, policy development specialists, and administrative support personnel. But all of these positions work collaboratively and are critical to the branch's operation. The mandate of the survey is to map the geological framework of the province, to interpret and explain its geological evolution, and to describe, interpret, and explain the distribution, nature, quantity, and origin of the province's mineral resources. The division is responsible for the collection and maintenance of all geoscience data generated by the division's researchers, along with reports supplied by prospectors and exploration companies as part of the exploration activities throughout the province. They also administer the data contained within the Mineral Lands Division's core storage facilities. The survey's products are used by the department, the exploration and mining industries, and academia to support further research and investment in mineral development in the province. The survey has many projects proposed for the upcoming year in various areas of the island and in Labrador. All of its program areas are active, including a geophysical survey and gold studies in the northeast part of the island and mapping on the Baver Peninsula. The polygons there show basically the area of study that these investigations would entail. And similarly in Labrador, there's various studies to be undertaken. And then, at the end of those research cycles, then the survey produces reports, and then that adds to the geoscience data that's existing, and that the goal of that then is to lead to additional investment and staking of lands, and continuing on that cycle. And a cycle is what I'll be getting into shortly. Mineral Lands Division. I'll change slide yet? I have not. Is the gateway to land access for investment in mineral exploration and mining. Specifically, the Mineral Lands Division is responsible for policy development, management of core storage facilities in 6 communities across the province, where we have approximately 1.5 million meters of core that have been obtained from exploration projects over the last 100 years. Administration, we also do administration and regulatory oversight of mineral land tenure, which includes issuance of mineral licenses, exploration permits, and mining leases, and for quarrying, exploration permits, and quarry permits and leases. The whole premise of the Mineral Lands Division is to ensure that land and resources are made accessible to the greatest extent possible. Through the various submissions, policies, and development proposals we review and analyze, we are focused on maximizing the land base available to carry out mineral exploration, mining, and quarrying. This includes administration of a number of pieces of legislation, including numerous others throughout government that we are involved with as they are integrated with our activities. The number at the center of this diagram is the utmost importance. This is the entire landmass of the province. Whether it's the tenure that we issue, the private and Crown land development applications that we review, or the various policies and other regulatory frameworks that can affect access to resource development, Mineral Lands Division is the key point of contact to communicate mineral industry needs. The Mineral Development Division, the last of our 3 divisions, is responsible for approvals for development and operation of mines, monitoring and analysis of the mining industry, development of mineral policy, management of incentive programs for exploration and development, and for the rehabilitation of hazards associated with abandoned mines. If mineral exploration advances to a point where an economic resource has been identified, the project enters the phase where infrastructure is built to support mining. The Mining Act is the key piece of legislation that guides mining operations through these steps. So that would be the ideal that would be the ideal situation here where a resource is found, all the infrastructure needed to build a mine, then mining occurs, and when the resource is exhausted, then the land returns to a situation where it can be used for other purposes. So now I want to get in a little bit on called life cycles. The mineral development life cycle is a 5-stage process that transforms a mineral occurrence into an operating mine and eventually reclaim land. This cycle can span decades, and often does, involving environmental assessments, community engagement, and regulatory approvals. You can see here how our 3 divisions take into account this life cycle. There are integrations between all the divisions at various times. So I want to zoom in a little bit on what I'm calling a mineral lands life cycle. And that gets back to the over $200 million of exploration investment that I mentioned earlier, and how the orange, the information area in orange sort of represents how that cycle goes. Within this cycle, there is a mineral lands life cycle that governs how mineral rights are acquired, maintained, and advanced. This process helps create a clear framework for access to mineral lands, and for the progression of projects over time. It includes steps related to land acquisition, maintaining tenure, regulatory requirements, and where appropriate, transition to more advanced forms of tenure that are needed for mining, to continue exploration, or in some cases, the land is returned back to the Crown that then we can make available to others to advance exploration further. Mines are typically not identified in short time frames, and often decades of exploration are needed to identify an economic mineral resource that can lead to a mine. If we look locally at the Newfound Gold Mine, that's an area that was explored decades ago, but it's only the activity in the last 5 to 8 years that has really advanced it to a point where it's about to enter into, or it's going through the approval process to become a mine. Mineral development depends not only on resource potential, but also on a clear and transparent regulatory system for land use. Part of this framework is the monitoring of exploration activity through on-site inspections. The last part of my presentation will show various exploration activities and what compliance looks like. So what I've done here is basically taken the diagram that you just saw about the sort of the Mining Act approvals, where we go into mining or development, mining, and closure. This is kind of the general life cycle for mineral lands, where land is acquired through. Where land is acquired through the staking of mineral licenses, how exploration is undertaken, and then what the land would look like after the exploration is finished. It is these exploration activities, often occurring behind the scenes, that provide significant economic activity, particularly in rural parts of the province. Here's some numbers here that give you a sense of what's going on out there. And these typically are used to document the level of activity. There is significant contrast between the last 5 years and what has happened since then. You can see that the number of permits that we issued on average before 2020 were still significant, but since then, nearly doubled in some cases. The amount of land that's been taken into account before then, 92,000 is how much land that was being managed for mineral tenure, and it's doubled that since 2020 on average. And you can see then also the amount of investment into the province has increased by 400%. And the last 5 years was kicked off by the gold rush here in central Newfoundland via Newfound Gold's Queensway project, which if you are local, you've probably heard about that, or may have family members who are working on that, working in that area. Now, In terms of the exploration activity, the regulatory process for that involves a kind of a two-stage, we call it a two-year, two-tier. Bernardine, who's here, invented the name for that. The regulatory framework for mineral exploration is covered by the Mineral Act and mineral regulations. There is also an extensive set of environmental guidelines that were developed by the department in consultation with other agencies and industry, and these guidelines are required to be adhered to in completing exploration work. Exploration activities are permitted under two categories and in consultation with provincial and federal government agencies, municipalities, and Indigenous governments and organizations. All work permitted in Labrador is considered for Indigenous consultation through our engagement with the Office of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. So over the last part of my presentation, I want to give you a sense of what mineral exploration looks like, from grassroots style prospecting to advanced levels of activity. All of these activities are important steps to understand the mineral resources that may lay at depth, and in terms of the mineral lands and mineral development life cycles, advancing this knowledge to a point where mining may be possible. So let's start off by showing you a few photos of what type of work we would approve under the letter of acceptance category. So exploration work that is approved under this category include boots and hammer prospecting, such as mapping. You can see here, just looking at the rock surface, identifying features, trying to look at that over various scales, from the outcrop scale to larger scales, the map scale. Collecting rock samples for analysis. So minor ground disturbance is hammering off some rocks, collecting those rocks, taking them for analysis, and small scale channel sampling, where equipment such as that can cut out small slivers of the rock surface for analysis. Whereas exploration approval is for work, as I noted, where there is some ground disturbance, and the regulations then require that an approval be issued for that. So line cutting for ground geophysical surveys require modest amounts of tree cutting. Let me go to the next slide. You can see here that there's some line cutting there. So from the air, it looks just like it looks like lines through the trees. You can see them, but from the ground you wouldn't necessarily know that it's there. They require modest amounts of tree cutting to allow equipment and people to pass through. On the ground, this may look like that, such as on the left. So you can see the person there kind of pushing through. It can look like that, or like that, where other than the flagging tape, you wouldn't really tell that any work had gone on there. So rehabilitation for this type of work does not need intervention, as natural regeneration is all that is needed. Access trails, however, to support mineral exploration can take many forms, but generally involves traveling over land on existing terrain, tree cutting, or minor ground modification to support access. These are temporary in nature and are rehabilitated at the end of the season or of the exploration work in that area, whichever occurs first. So in terms of a trail rehabilitation, of course, that's labeled as trail rehabilitation, but it's not rehabilitated yet. A trail transformed from an active route with vegetation and soils placed to the side, which you can see here, seeing as they're pushed to the side, to a point where all material is spread back over the area once the trail is no longer needed. So that area, when it was active, looked like that, and then when it was complete, it looked like that. So all the material was put back. That material decays and rots in place, and then new vegetation then grows back where the trail once was. Trenching and channel sampling involve the removal of vegetation and overburden in a localized area to investigate mineral targets that may exist in the bedrock at depth. The base of trenches are subject to mapping, sampling, and drilling if necessary. Materials are required to be excavated in a specific order, separating out the organic material from the underlying mineral soil. Rehabilitation for trenches is carried out in reverse order by backfilling first the mineral soil, then the organics. So you can see here, so again, all the organic material is moved to the side. The mineral soil underneath is then extracted. And then in terms of, here's the same photo again. And then once the material is backfilled in the reverse order, as I noted, then that site looks like that. So you barely know that, after a year or so, you could walk back in there and not know that activity had actually occurred. And this is typical. We do deal with compliance issues where this isn't done properly, but that's addressed. But this is sort of a typical view of how things work. Drilling. Drilling is undertaken to obtain bedrock cores from tens to hundreds of meters at depth. The cores are logged and sampled for later analysis and laboratory testing. When the drill rig leaves the drilling location, the drill pad generally looks like this, with posts left, sort of marking the drill locations. In many instances, no active rehabilitation is required. So you can see here, the drill rig just went in over the surface, drilled the hole. Here's some of the cuttings. Here's where the drill hole was. Likewise there. And then in the last example, of course, in these photos, the drilling is more recent. So you can see the ground disturbance, the land hasn't rebounded yet. Whereas in this site, after a couple of years, once material is no longer disturbed, then it just regrows. But then you can still see the evidence. So you could wander around in the woods and it looks all natural, but then there's this post that marks the drill location. Now, in these examples, there was no actual rehabilitation needed after the drilling was complete, but that's not the case all the time. So, and in this here, I'll go back again. So here we see a drill rig has left. The trees had been cut, but now the trees have been spread back over the area. So all you see is trees laying to decay and then generate new soil and new habitat. And likewise here, this material is just pushed back in, all the organics all around here, and then the site is rehabilitated. And you may now notice there's the drill location. The posts are sort of blending in with the wood particles there. And then here's a freshly here's what a site looked like. It was drilled and rehabilitated in the same season. I think this may have been a year or two ago. In this location, but so the ground is freshly disturbed, but freshly rehabilitated. So we're at the end. So I just want to do a little summary here of sort of what we've talked about. Conclude that our province is rich in mineral resources, and the economic benefit that their development brings is significant, representing approximately 7% of the provincial gross domestic product. There's a long history of mineral development that began thousands of years ago and remain strong, particularly over the last number of years. We have a comprehensive regulatory processes for mineral developments and are engaged with stakeholders throughout the process. I want to thank you for your time this evening.